Hey YouTube, what's crackalackin'? It's ClemtheKraken, and this video is a little late in coming because it's the middle of July. But June was Orca Awareness Month in Washington State. And if you didn't know, Washington State has 3 orca pods, the J pod, the K pod, and the L pod. And they live not in Washington State specifically, but in the waters around Washington State, and they come down into the Puget Sound area when they want to, obviously. And so I thought that I would take this opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about orcas, because I love, if you didn't already know from my username and several videos that I've done, I love the ocean. I worked at an aquarium for a long time, and we did a lot of research, and being in Washington with these 3 resident pods means that we got to contribute a lot to orca research around the world. So, like I said, we have 3 pods. We have the J pod, which consists of 24 orcas, the K pod, which consists of 19 orcas, and the L pod, which consists of 35 orcas. It's a total of 78 orcas that regularly spends time up in, Washington, Canada area. And that number is as of December 31st, 2016. And you may know about some of our orcas or some of the pods. You may have heard of the pods, and you may have heard of specific orcas. One that you may have heard of specifically is Granny the orca, who was the oldest living orca that had been documented, and unfortunately she passed away quite recently. She was around 103, 105, somewhere in the hundreds, which is an incredibly long time and is the oldest orca that we know about today. So you might have noticed that our orca numbers are a little small. I mean, we do have L pod, which is 35, but K pod only has 19 orcas in it. And unfortunately, the orcas, especially the resident orcas in the Puget Sound, were placed on the endangered species list in November of 2005, which makes them an endangered species until their numbers are at a point where they're recoverable. And the reasons why the numbers are so small is because a lot of the whales that used to live in this area were heavily reduced by orcas being captured to be put in marine parks in the 1965 to 1975 time period. We know from historical records that 13 orcas were killed during this time period, and 45 were sent around the world to be put in marine parks, to be put on exhibit to entertain people. And the only one still alive that was captured during that time period is Lolita. She was originally from somewhere in the Salish Sea, maybe one of these 3 pods, but she is now the only remaining orca alive from that quote-unquote haul. And the reason why our orcas specifically are so important is because they're really key to helping us as humans understand orcas. Because the honest truth is we don't know a lot, even though orcas are basically everywhere. Like there's a type of orca in every ocean around the world. There's orcas that live near every single continent. Orcas are not like rare creatures. We're lucky to have such close and such semi-regular connections to our orcas that we can study them and study their habits and their movements and watch them grow and decline and see how to make the area that we live in more orca safe. But one of the things that we do know is that there's 3 types of orcas. There's offshore orcas, there's resident orcas, and there's transient orcas. So resident orcas are the ones that live where I'm from. the ones that kind of, occupy the Puget Sound in the area along the Washington, Canada coast. And residents are known for living in large family groups, and they generally are, they eat things that can be found, kind of on that coast area. So salmon is a big, is something that they eat a lot, and is really important to watch, how we affect the salmon, because the salmon go on and they affect the growth of the pods, and whether or not the pods can support having more children, can support the adults long enough to breed and things like that. Because orcas, they don't just have one baby, they have lots of babies, and the babies are the only thing that are going to help the pods grow. So like monitoring the salmon up in Washington and Oregon and Canada, making sure, we're not affecting their rivers or their spawning grounds too much, is really important for the orcas as well. And then there's the transients, which we know a little bit more about, and those are the ones that they live in smaller groups. These are the ones that are mostly featured in nature documentaries. They live in small groups of about 1 to 7, and they tend to travel silently. They don't chatter a lot. And these are also the orcas that are most known for kind of being the jerks of the ocean. So these are the orcas that you see in nature films, flipping around marine mammals, the ones that toss the seals up into the air, or teaching their young how to hunt by, playing with seals and then never actually eating them. Or these are the ones that will go down in places in South America and flip sharks over just for fun, like not even to eat the sharks, just flip them over and then swim away, which is bad for the sharks, because it will stop the sharks from breathing and then basically drown them. These are the ones that kind of got the name killer whales, because the Native Americans, I believe it was a long time ago, saw these orcas killing whales, and so they were the whale killers, which somehow, through years and years of translation and being passed down, turned into killer whales. And then there's the offshore whales. And the offshore orca whales weren't even discovered until 1988, which was quite recently. And they live in large groups. So they live in groups of 20 to 75 orcas all together. And they're just not well documented, because they live, as the name implies, offshore. So, while we have definitely upgraded the ways that we study orcas and the ways to get out into the ocean and submarines, and we've even seen, things deep within the Marianas Trench, we've done a lot of work towards it, they're still not well documented, because you can't just, see the orca. You have to be able to see it, and then you have to be able to tag it and follow it, and, be in such an area that you can watch the whale consistently for periods of time to get a better understanding of how they live and how they hunt and how they communicate and all those things. And it's things that cost a lot of money and that are very hard to do. But so the offshore orcas aren't very well documented at all. But the 3 pods that we do have, we are trying to use as a way to understand orcas better, and how they function, and how they interact with each other, and how they interact with their environment, and what we can do as humans to help them with this. Make sure that they're getting the food and resources that they need, so that this, top predator in the ocean doesn't disappear, because, it's an apex predator, and those control the ocean as much as the little fish in the middle do. And they help things balance out, and they make sure that one certain type of, prey doesn't grow out of control and eat all of their prey, and then things just, go all bat crazy in the ocean. So the orcas that we have really help understand more about the orcas that are around the world. And we're not the only ones, granted. You know, like I said, there's orcas all over the world, but we're just special in that we have the J pod, the K pod, and the L pod that regularly come into our Puget Sound area and, you know, hang out with us and let us use them as a way to scientifically better our knowledge of how orcas live and how they survive in this, you know, changing society. And it's always, you know, it's always a boon for us when we see that they're reproducing and that they've got baby orcas that are surviving, because that's something that we want. We want their numbers to increase, because 78 is not a lot of orcas, even though it sounds like it. So yeah, I just thought that, you know, June was Orca Awareness Month, which I wasn't even aware of. Like, I gotten emails telling me that it was Orca Awareness Month. So June was Orca Awareness Month, and I just thought it would be a great opportunity to talk to you guys a little bit about orcas, especially since we've got the 3 pods that live in the Puget Sound. And, you know, I you know, love my sea animals, and I thought that it would be a great opportunity for me to just tell you guys a little bit about orcas and kind of what we know about them and what we don't. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you like orcas by liking this video. Write down in the comments if you want me to talk about any more marine animals, because I am inevitably going to, but if you guys have any opinions on which ones you'd like to see next, you should let me know. And I will see you guys in the next video. Release the Kraken!